Historians have referred to him as a polygon, a man of many dimensions. This man was none other than Theodore Roosevelt. He moved and thought at a pace that was unprecedented. Roosevelt read at a ferocious pace, reading 3 pages a minute, photographing each page as he read. He spoke 3 different languages fluently and shook more hands than any other person in U.S. history. Roosevelt achieved more in 6 decades than most individuals consider possible. However, at the age of 26, Theodore Roosevelt endured 2 tragic events which had the potential to incapacitate anyone. How did he overcome this devastating event? On today's episode of Hindsight History, we look into what principles we can learn from the 26th President of the United States. In February of 1884, Theodore Roosevelt was serving as a Republican assemblyman representing Manhattan's 21st District. On the morning of February 13th at the Capitol in Albany, the assemblyman was seen shaking hands and receiving a father's congratulations from his fellow colleagues. He had received a telegram from New York stating that his wife Alice had just given birth to a baby girl late the night before. A few hours passed, and a second telegram arrived. As Roosevelt read it, witnesses state that the expression on his face changed. He immediately left the Capitol and quickly ran to catch the next train south. The train ride to New York took 5 hours, and all Theodore Roosevelt could do to pass the time is reread his 2 telegrams. It was around 10:30 p.m. when the train pulled into Grand Central Station. He searched for West 57th Street by lamplight. When he arrived, the house was dark. His younger brother Elliot was present and said, "There is a curse on this house. Mother is dying, and Alice is dying too." His wife Alice, only 22 years old, was dying of Bright's disease, a chronic inflammation of the kidneys. Meanwhile, directly on the floor below, his mother Mittie was expiring of typhoid fever. As the Fifth Avenue bells rang at 2 a.m. on the morning of Valentine's Day, a message came from downstairs. If Theodore wished to say goodbye to his mother, he must do so now. Mittie would pass within the hour. 11 hours later, Alice died, with Theodore still holding her. Roosevelt drew a large cross in his pocket diary on this date and wrote beneath, "The light has gone out of my life." Of his personal tragedy, he would not utter a single word, not even to his daughter, who would share her very same name. Within days following the funeral, Theodore entrusted his sister Anna to watch over baby Alice. He needed to escape the enormous grief that threatened to control him. At a very young age, Theodore's father told him, "Get action. Be sane. Don't fritter away your time." Taking his father's words to heart, Theodore Roosevelt left the assembly and ventured 1,600 miles west aboard a freight train to the unlikeliest of areas, the Badlands. Towards the end of the 19th century, the Dakota Badlands had an appeal to many Easterners. They traveled in droves out west, not to become cowboys, but rather ranchmen, and to be a part of what was known as the cattle boom. Theodore romanticized ranching in the Badlands, which embodied a full regalia of exquisitely tailored clothes, including buckskin shirts, silver spurs, alligator boots, and a silver bowie knife, custom-made by Tiffany's. Theodore made his first initial investment of $14,000 in the Badlands, where he would eventually sink half of his life fortune. His fellow ranchmen called him Theodore, while the cowboys referred to him as Old Four Eyes, which he did not take well. On one occasion, in the corner of a local saloon, when a drunken cowboy got too close to him and pulled a revolver, Roosevelt knocked him cold with a single punch. On the morning of August 18th, Theodore set out on an expedition to the Bighorns in Wyoming, roughly 300 miles to the southwest. The group would be gone for nearly 2 months. The group endured hurricanes, sharp winds, and a pack of wolves. On one particular evening, Roosevelt saw a half-human footprint of a 9-foot, 1,200-pound grizzly bear, which he would confront the next day, only to shoot the bear directly between the eyes. On another occasion, Roosevelt was informed by his fellow ranchmen that a boat had been stolen the night before and taken off downstream. The next day, Roosevelt and 2 other men ventured by a makeshift boat, only to catch up with the 2 thieves, who quickly surrendered without a fight. Roosevelt made sure to restage the capture on camera. In all, Roosevelt invested a total of $82,000 in cattle, his cabin, and wages. He would eventually lose nearly all of it due to the most severe snowstorm in the winter of 1887, wiping out hundreds of thousands of cattle, resulting in Roosevelt losing an equivalent of $700,000. Despite these setbacks, his time spent in the Badlands helped to heal the heartbreak that nearly crippled him. Ernest Hemingway once said, "The world breaks everyone, and afterward, many are strong at the broken places." When Theodore Roosevelt returned from the Badlands, the once 98-pound assemblyman now weighed 150 pounds and was full of muscle and grit. The man who had been born into a privileged home demonstrated that he could carry his weight among every social and economic class. This experience would only strengthen Roosevelt's political career, as he could now empathize with the common man and the American population. Many years later, Roosevelt proclaimed, "If it had not been for my years in North Dakota, I would have never become President of the United States." As the Industrial Revolution emerged during his presidency, Roosevelt recognized the importance of preserving our natural resources. In June of 1906, he would sign the Antiquities Act, allowing the president to protect historical landmarks on federal lands. Roosevelt increased his conservational efforts to preserve more than 280,000 square miles of federal land. He played a significant role in the creation and enlargement of 150 national forests, created 51 federal bird refuges, 4 national game preserves, 6 national parks, and 18 national monuments, including the Muir Woods of California, Devil's Tower in Wyoming, and the magnificent Grand Canyon. Roosevelt also created the United States Forest Service in 1905 to ensure that natural resources were developed ethically and responsibly. Roosevelt's fervent devotion to conserving our natural resources and history established a precedent at a critical time throughout the United States. He returned from the Badlands with a deeper perspective, and most of all, understood from the loss of his wife and mother how precious life can be. Theodore Roosevelt stands as a testament to the ability to grow from difficulties. Our life stories can be inspired by a man who, through an unimaginable course of events, became stronger through it and led a nation into the 20th century.
It is, are the American people fit to govern themselves, to rule themselves, to control themselves? I believe they are. I believe that the majority of the plain people of the United States will, day in and day out, make fewer mistakes in governing themselves than any smaller class or body of men, no matter what their training, will make in trying to govern. I believe again that the American people are as a whole capable of self-control and of learning by their mistakes. I am not leading this fight as a matter of aesthetic pleasure. I am leading because somebody must lead, or else the fight would not be made at all. We, the people, cannot turn back. Our aim must be steady, wise thought. The leader, for the time being, whoever he may be, is but an instrument to be used until broken and then to be cast aside.